I guess it's time to cue the music. What up, folks? Today I'm doing a review of Eddie Murphy's Dolomite Is My Name. I know everybody's calling it Eddie's comeback movie. I'm not sure why, because Eddie's been making movies all along. So how is it a comeback movie when every year he's doing one or two movies? But I guess I shouldn't digress, right? Well, I saw the movie. It's on Netflix, and I love it. In fact, I ended up seeing it twice. I mean, within a couple of days, because it really is a cool flick. It's inspirational. It basically lets you see. Well, I always did like stories about nobodies or small people that kind of work their way up to become famous and become notable. And that's one of those cases. And it's, in some ways for me, it's a little bit close to home. So that made it even nicer. My only problem, and I don't know how to describe this, but my only problem with the flick probably was Eddie Murphy. And let me explain. I've known Rudy Ray Moore, I guess you could say, ever since I was probably like late elementary, junior high. The Rudy Ray Moore thing goes way back. I can remember being in Louisiana with my older cousins, and I was like 11 or 12 years old. He had told some people he had a Rudy Ray Moore 8-track, and everybody went out to the car to listen to the tape in his car. He saw me and hey, take your butt back in the barbershop. So at that time, I guess I was considered too young to listen to Rudy Ray Moore. Well, nonetheless, kids being kids, I got to hear it anyway. And a lot of his other stuff. So, like I say, as far as Rudy Ray Moore, it goes way back. Eddie Murphy, well, Eddie Murphy made it big, I guess you could say, during my college years. So I know the difference between Rudy Ray Moore and Eddie Murphy. And to me, Eddie Murphy didn't quite capture Rudy Ray Moore, even though I was well entertained by the movie. I think it was well done. It was well written. I mean, overall, except for, like I said, the fact that I know Eddie Murphy's voice, I know Rudy Ray Moore's voice, totally different. That was really the only problem I had with the movie. Now, for those who do watch the movie, and biopics are supposed to be factual, I will say there's about 4 parts and how they got the movie done that's not in the movie Dolomite. These scenes are actually in the sequel, The Human Tornado. I'm not going to go over what scenes are what, but just keep that in mind. Because I watched the actual Dolomite about a week before I got to see Dolomite Is My Name. And I remember seeing certain scenes. I'm like, I don't remember that in the movie. And then I saw The Human Tornado, and I was like, oh, okay, that explains it. Now, the funny thing about it, I usually heard Rudy Ray Moore when I was in Louisiana, because I was kind of back and forth between LA and Louisiana. And I usually heard Rudy Ray Moore when I was in Louisiana, more so than I was, here in LA. The funny thing is, the record store that Rudy Ray Moore worked at, Dolphins of Hollywood, wasn't that far from where I live. I'd never been there, but I just knew where it was. And the place where much of the movie Dolomite was done, in the Dunbar Hotel, which was under serious disrepair at the time, well, that's right near where that record store was, and it's not that far from where I live. My play grandmother lived a couple of blocks from there, so I was always in that area. So it was just funny to realize that all this was going on around me, or, well, I can't really say that because by the time they did Dolomite, I was staying in Louisiana during those years. Now, I'm being factual about that part. Now, one thing I will say, Craig Robinson played as Ben Taylor. He was the guy that came up with the soundtrack for Dolomite, and on the set, he was the cook, or the guy who served the meals during this, during the filming. But the funny thing about that, the real Ben Taylor, I had known him for years and had no idea he had anything to do with Dolomite or Rudy Ray Moore. It turns out Mr. Taylor, who was the cafeteria supervisor at one of the schools I worked at, and I knew he did music on the side. Well, it turns out he was that musician that hung out with Rudy Ray Moore. Now, I would love to interview the guy to kind of talk with him about that, but I understood that he retired and he's still in LA, but I don't know if I'll be able to reach him now. But I found that kind of interesting because I had no idea that Mr. Taylor had worked on Dolomite and the other Rudy Ray Moore movies. Oh, in the original Dolomite movie, there's a scene where basically Dolomite is getting out of prison. Well, that wasn't a prison. They actually used a parking lot of a school that I used to work at. And that was a trip. And now I go back and look at it, and yeah, that was at Mount Vernon Middle School. Well, Johnny Cochran Middle School now. But, again, that's my little personal perspective. I think you should go out and check out Dolomite. To me, it's a fun movie. I can't see anybody just disliking the movie. And I know people are going to say that I'm all my rocker about Eddie Murphy, and I really don't have a big problem with Eddie Murphy's performance overall. It's just Rudy Ray Moore's voice, Eddie Murphy's voice. So, what can I say? I think Eddie Murphy did an excellent job, but I know Rudy Ray Moore's voice. So, what can I say on that one? Check out Dolomite Is My Name. I think you'll love it. Also, if anybody knows how to get in touch with Ben Taylor, the musician, the former cafeteria manager, hook me up, because I'd like to talk to the guy. I really like him to get a YouTube interview. That's if you can.